Barbara Creasy has called on the Special Investigating Unit to probe widespread corruption at vehicle testing stations. Now, this follows a report by the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, which reveals that vehicles failing inspections in Gauteng were somehow issued roadworthy certificates by testing stations in Limpopo and the North West province. Now, to unpack these findings further, we are now joined by OUTA's Senior Project Manager, Rudie Heyneke. Rudie, of course, it is a very busy time on the roads as we are leading towards the Easter period, and many then expecting the carnage that we've seen over the years to pile up on the roads. You compiled a report, of course, uncovering corruption at some of the centres, which has contributed to some of the carnage that we're seeing on the roads. This week, we heard that the Minister has now asked the Special Investigating Unit to probe this. What is your reaction as OUTA then, following the comprehensive report that you have put together, to know that this is now going to be investigated a little bit deeper?
Good morning, Annie. Yes, we are very happy that this is going to happen now, that the SIU will investigate. And this is a problem that doesn't, appear overnight. This is a thing that's been in South Africa and with the vehicle testing stations for years. We just had all the documents and we only had a very small sample to work with. But when we published the report, we got more information. A lot of vehicle testing station owners phoned us and say that they know that this is happening at some vehicle stations, testing stations. And so we are very impressed that the SIU will be on the scene now to also investigate that. And as a matter of fact, we already had a telephonic conversation with the SIU and will be meeting with their investigators next week.
And what are you hoping the outcome is going to be from this then? If you're looking at some of the recommendations that you've put in your report and some of the findings that you've had through your investigations, what are you hoping is going to be the outcome or the finding that the SIU will come to?
We all know what is the problem, so we are seeking solutions. And what we are also going to do, except for assisting the SIU with whatever information they need, is to later this year hold a national workshop and get all the stakeholders around the table, and we hope that the department and the minister will also be there, so that we can look at solutions and see how we can make sure that if a vehicle is on our roads in South Africa, that it is roadworthy and that it is in such a condition that it will not be cause a danger for the passengers using that, especially with public transport.
Yeah, and of course, just in the intro, I was mentioning that the carnage on our roads, sometimes we look at it as an incident that would have happened in that moment in the accident, but we don't take a step back to check whether or not that car should have been on the road to begin with. Startling statistics here, 1.2 million unroadworthy vehicles, an additional 800,000 that are unregistered or unroadworthy. If you're looking at, we delve deeper into some of the issues that you've highlighted, the corruption at the centres, what is it that you would attribute this to as a main contributing factor? Why are we seeing so much corruption, particularly in Limpopo and the North West province?
I think it is just, a lack of very good oversight. And then obviously people with just a corrupt mind and thinking that this is a method that they can make a lot of money in a very short period. Because what happens is that one must remember that buses, as you've spoken, or as you said before, 500 buses leaving for Moria over this weekend. Buses should be tested every 6 months. So, and you pay to test a vehicle. So it is a lucrative business, and we have seen, especially in Limpopo, that test stations are getting registered and licenses from the MEC of Transport in the province. Shot up like mushrooms all over the province. And we also heard, especially from the vehicle testing station owners here in Gauteng and in Mpumalanga, that their clientele is getting less and less, and they see that their usual clients, especially taxis and buses that must be tested very frequently, are being tested in other provinces. And what we have discovered in our report is that sometimes these vehicles never go for a physical inspection. It is only a telephone call, giving the vehicle details to this crooked test station. And, minutes later, it is on the NATA system recorded that this vehicle was inspected and that it was cleared for roadworthy. And that is the problem that we have. And it is a lucrative money business for people, conducting their business in that way.
Particularly if you're somebody that owns multiple vehicles or a fleet and also own a testing center. That's one of the concerns that you've raised in your report as well. Why is this particularly a concern? Because at the face of it, it shouldn't automatically be a wrong thing for you to own both, is it?
No, it's not a wrong thing. It is just that you must, two things that we have highlighted there. The one is that you will be able to do your tests for free, but there's also a possibility that you will not conduct your tests and only issue yourself with certificates. And that's why we say that it should not be allowed that owns a fleet of vehicles and a vehicle testing station can test their own vehicles. They should test their vehicles at the other and an independent test station.
Let's look at some of the potential solutions then. We did mention the vehicle frequency that is a bit of a concern. Buses being required to be tested every 6 months, taxis just once a year, and private cars only when there's a change of ownership. Do you believe this is something that should be changed going forward, particularly if you're considering that wear and tear on vehicles would not be the same and some travel a lot more than others? Should we be looking at other factors to assess how frequently vehicles should be assessed?
Yes, the frequency of the testing, I think it is important. In other countries, we saw that, when a vehicle is 10 years old, a passenger vehicle, a sedan vehicle, family car, it must be tested every year after the initial 10 years. And I think that is a good thing. A new car is not supposed to have, these many problems. But it is important that those cars are being tested, in the future. With heavy vehicles, especially on our roads, a lot of heavy vehicles, because we don't have that a very good rail system, we see a lot of heavy vehicles on the road. They should be tested once a year as well. And I think there we can even up the frequency to every 6 months, because these vehicles are, taking a lot of hammering with the conditions and what they are moving. So that should be, I believe, be every 6 months as well, like buses. And then obviously every vehicle that carries passengers should be in a condition that passenger should not worry when you get into that vehicle. And we need to make sure that those vehicles do get a physical test. The other thing that we proposed is that the whole system must be a live system, where even if you book a test, a vehicle test, it must be live and online, so that everyone can see what is the route that vehicle goes through when it's getting tested, so that it cannot happen, as we saw now, that you test your vehicle, it failed, and then half an hour later it's getting declared roadworthy at another test station. Also, failures should be reported and captured on the system, so that you can track the history of this vehicle. So and I think we are not in the roadworthy testing business, but I do believe that there are stakeholders, and we've spoken to some, that will have even more and better ideas how this system can be made so that this corruption can be rooted out.
Just as we conclude then, just to get your overall remarks on whether or not we are even making inroads in the fight against, road accidents and carnage in South Africa, because it seems that the more regulation that gets put in place, with all the noble intentions, it's not really doing a dent in terms of bringing those numbers down. Yesterday, we were in conversation with the Deputy Transport Minister, Mr. Nkululeko Nhlengwa, just on some of the other additional issues that are contributing to the carnage on our roads. What needs to be done? Do you feel this is a fight that we are winning at the moment?
No, it's not a fight that we are winning. If you see and you speak to the people in the sector, it's definitely not a fight that we are winning. I think there are too many people with no integrity owning these test stations, and they are just in there to make the money. There should be very, very, very strict policing, and also the equipment that it must be used in such a test station should be tested more often by the SABS. That is part of the regulations. But we also heard that some of the personnel there are being bribed to say, there is some money for you because our equipment is not in good condition. So these are all factors that we must look at. And we are definitely at this stage not winning this fight. And therefore, we call on all stakeholders later this year to attend when we have a workshop like this, so that we can get to solutions and that we can make it safer for all of us on our roads.
Well, I suppose you're already starting or trying to win that fight by making these findings public. Thank you so much for your time.